On today's episode of the podcast, we are going to get into what it actually means to enjoy the process. What does it really mean when women or coaches say in the fitness industry, enjoy the journey? Let's get into the nitty gritty on today's episode. Welcome back to the Fit and Unfiltered podcast. We are now in peak season, ladies, and a lot of you will be hell bent on achieving a specific goal, scale, weight. But I want to flip that on its head a little. Because whilst we feel that is going to be the transformation nailed, we're actually missing that it's the process, it's the journey that is the transformation. It's who you become in the process. It's the woman behind the camera. You take that photograph of yourself in the swimwear and it's not the body, it's not the scale weight. It's the journey that you've taken in order to get to that point. It's the identity shift. It's the woman that you have become. So I want to go through it in today's episode. Very short and sweet, but I'm going to give you 5 systems that I believe if you can put these in place, and yes, you can put them in place now and still make progress in time for whenever your summer holiday might be. Hopefully it's not within the next 72 hours. But if you put these systems in place now and you live by these systems and you remove anything else that's not this, I guarantee not only will you start to move the needle, not only will you start to see those results, but this is what we talk about when we say enjoy the process. Before we get into that, I cannot let this episode pass without giving a little bit of scoop on my recent trip to Ibiza. If you follow on social media, I actually held back so much from oversharing. My page is obviously not my personal page. I view it as a little bit of everything. There's a bit of lifestyle stuff on there. And I know that everybody likes to have a good nose and a good behind the scenes. So maybe I should have posted more. But guys, the time that we had was unbelievable. And without question, the biggest question that I have had is, did you drink? Did you have alcohol? How did you manage Ibiza, Nick? How have you come back and you still seem fresh? Well, little disclosure, I did have some alcohol, actually. So we were away for 4 days and it was for my hubby's 40th. So in his true style, we had day and night booked. I think the majority of people go to Ibiza and do one or the other, day or night. And we kind of done both. He was like, listen, we never do anything for ourselves without the kids. We're doing it. We're going to have a great time. And so we were there for 4 days. It felt like we were away for so long. And I think it's because it's the first time in as long as I can remember that I actually allowed myself to switch off. I know I've said in a previous episode, I just don't do well at that. If we go anywhere without the kids, I struggle to fully be present and switch off. I'm always kind of wishing the time away to get back. And I know that that's not healthy. I know that that's not a healthy way to like, as adults, as women, we still need to be our own independent person away from being mum, and I absolutely advocate all of that. I personally just struggle with it a little bit myself. And so knowing that the last time that we'd been away, kind of felt a bit of regret on the way home that I hadn't just allowed myself to enjoy it a bit more. Because, you know, when the time has passed and you're finally on the way back, it was like, oh, and now we're back to the chaos. And we should have just enjoyed that more because we were there anyway. We might as well have been present and enjoyed ourselves. And so I've been practicing that. I was very intentional with that at the weekend. And honestly, I can say that I have come back feeling completely renewed. Like I feel as though, this is going to sound very deep, I feel as though I've regained a piece of me that I didn't realise I was missing. A part of my identity that I've just kind of buried since becoming a mum, which I think we all do. And I just forgot about her because it was like, that's not who you are anymore, Nick. You are a mum. And I think somewhere along the line, I've kind of convinced myself that you can't be both. And you can't be both at all times. But in that little moment this weekend, I absolutely regained that side of me that I didn't realise that I had missed. I held on to some of my newer identity traits, ladies. One of them is really managing alcohol intake. So when I say I had a little bit of alcohol on holiday, and this was a hot topic in my DMs on Instagram, let me tell you, I had a glass of wine with dinner. Didn't drink in the day, never drink in the day on holiday. I just don't like that. I know that there's always a mixed opinion on this because I think it's associated with let your hair down, have a relax. For me, it's just not that. For me, it just leads to me feeling tired and lethargic in the afternoon. So that's not how I want to feel on holiday. And I also like to get glam. I like to get dressed up. I like to feel good when I'm going out. And if I have a drink in the day, I end up just feeling hazy when I'm getting ready to go out rather than excited to get dressed up. But when we were going out for dinner, I was having a glass of wine with dinner. And then we were going out in the evening to the club, which, oh my God, like if you've not been to Ibiza, you will not know what I mean. But just, I've got no words. I am actually speechless on the podcast for the first time ever. So good, such a good time. So I just drank water when we were in the club, not because I was trying to be good. And I think we need to break this narrative. And I think if any of you struggle with this for yourself and you know that you want to be able to go away this summer and have a great time, and we can definitely get into this on a future episodes of the podcast, but you kind of worry that alcohol is going to get in the way of that because you know that then means that you're going to be bloated and foggy and hazy and feel hungover, and it's going to impact food choices. But you don't want to let the group down. You, God forbid, like your hubby is encouraging you to let your hair down, enjoy yourself. Like at some point, ladies, in life, we've just got to get very clear on this works for me, this doesn't work for me. It's black and white. I got to do what works for me. And so it wasn't about being good. It was about, have I had a glass of wine? I am actually now having the time of my life and I feel really good. And then on the last day, we had some sangria, which was very nice. Went down far too easy. I was tipsy off 2. So this is me, the biggest lightweight. This is how I avoid a hangover, basically. When you get to the point where you have no threshold for alcohol, even off 2 drinks. And then I think I might have had like 3 or 4 over the course of the entire day. So I felt very tired and a little bit heavy the next morning, but that was it. That was it. Couple of glasses of wine each night and a bit more, like a bit of sangria on the last day. And other than that, an absolute ball was had. And I haven't really felt any major impact of alcohol because I don't think I drank enough of it for it to have made a big impact. And I was also dancing a lot. We've got to think on this one, is that especially when you're on holiday, and again, we will get into this in a future episode, but when you are taking in alcohol, it's something that your body's got to get rid of. And so the movement matters. And so the more that we drink and the less that we move, that's why we get to this place midway through the holiday where it's like, oh, I need to dig into my kind of like week 2 wardrobe, and there's certain things now that I can't wear because I feel a certain kind of way. So yeah, it was a it was a sober Ibiza other than my tipsy one day. I didn't really feel tipsy any other time than that. But it was the best time and it was just what I needed. So any of you ladies that have got trips coming up, even if it's just a night away, a meal out with the hubs, a girls trip, like I get how guilty and anxious and just all of the reservations that we have leading up to letting our hair down. But I tell you this, if you can be intentional, how many minutes are we in there? 9 minutes. Teeth back in next. But if we can be really intentional about, I am going to let my hair down, live in the moment, appreciate and enjoy, it's game changing. And honestly, it's just another part of the process, and it's another part of the lifestyle that we're trying to build as thriving women, because to thrive also means to be able to take your foot off the gas, to go out, to dance until the early hours, to have the best time. It's even impacted our relationship. Like, it's massively impacted mine and the hubby's relationship, because we're now looking at what other things can we do together that we'll enjoy. And you can only imagine how that then will impact our family life also. So in a nutshell, highly recommend get out of your comfort zone, ladies, because it's a comfort zone for us mums. I can see a little Ibiza trip. Maybe not every year. I think that's a little bit much. I'm not quite ready to leave the kids every single summer, but yeah, highly recommend. At the age of 43, felt fantastic. Managed the alcohol intake, managed to keep up. Just, yeah, all of the things. It was fantastic. But We've got to get into it, because this is crunch time for a lot of you. I know it is. It's crunch time where the pressure feels as though it's on. Like, it is on. I've got to get on that. I'm going to get on that flight in 2 weeks, or like, we've got another heat wave in the UK. So whether or not you're going on holiday, summer clothes are coming out. It's not quite the same when we're in the UK. Obviously, when we're on holiday, we want to get dressed up overnight. We're going to be in our swimwear during the day. It is a different vibe. We've built ourselves up for this break, and nothing matters more than feeling good, like feeling good in ourselves. And I want you to remember that this feeling of feeling good, that's not a number, it's a feeling. And so I'm going to go through some of the systems that, honestly, I believe that if you can just put them into place and be adamant is what I will say. This is where not many women will be willing to stick to this and follow this through and get consistent. But if you can do that, you will start to feel more naturally energized. You'll start to sleep better. You will see a reduction in bloat and inflammation, and all of that entire process, that is what drives the needle. That is what gets you to the end goal. It's not just Hawkeye in the scale until you get on the holiday. Because then what happens, we go on holiday and we didn't have any systems in place in the build-up. We were just like white knuckling, winging it, like crash dieting as hard as we could. And then we get on holiday and we just go back to what we've always done on holiday. So we get a drink of alcohol at the airport, we get the same snacks for the flight, or we eat the plain food, whatever. And then we get there on day one and we kind of overindulge, because listen, we've been dieting our backsides off, so we are so ready to let loose on the buffet. And inside of the first 48 hours, you feel bloated. You feel like you've undone all of your hard work. Of course you haven't. Okay, let's get into it. These are simple systems, ladies. And I think, again, like, sometimes when it is simple, it kind of feels like, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's too easy. Like, give me something that is going to feel more challenging, more brutal. And it's because we've been so used to following these erratic fad diets, or very restrictive diets, or very low calorie diets. So anything that feels sustainable, anything where it's like all you've got to do now is show me some consistency, it's like, no, I didn't want that. I want more. I want to feel like I am restricting myself. I think a lot of women, like, we've almost brainwashed ourselves to feel like that's what the process is. That's what it takes. But if you've always yo-yoed, or you've always got to your goal weight and then you've bounced back, I want you to recognize that pattern. Is that your version of this is just what it takes to get to where I want to be is broken. Because if we can't sustain that, then that's not a lifestyle. That is a fad. And every time we fall in and fall out of it, I think we're actually wearing away at our self-esteem, because we convince ourselves that we can't be trusted to stick to anything, and we can't be trusted to follow through, and our body is just not designed to maintain this outcome. So let's get into it. Number one, non-negotiable on movement. So I've got 5 things here. Now we'll give a little bit of context on each, but your first system that you've got to have in place, because this is all systems, ladies. Thriving women, we don't rely on motivation. We're not even relying on willpower, although I will always say you have got to have some elements of willpower, realistically. It's more about putting systems in place so that regardless of the curveballs or the stress or the sleepless night, you've just got systems that you follow and they work for you. And obviously inside of the first couple of weeks, it might take some fine tuning. And over time, as we move through different seasons of the year, we'll adapt the systems. We might even adapt the systems week versus weekend, or around menstrual cycle. But generally speaking, you're following some sort of system that is a default for you. And the first one is non-negotiable on movement. So a daily habit, whether that is to get out on your lunch break for a walk, to park that little bit further away when you are picking the kids up from school, to add in 10 minutes on the treadmill before or after your workout, whatever it might be, we want to build in a system whereby that's just you, that's who you are, that's what you do. There might be certain places that you've always driven to. Got a lot of clients who'll tell me this, like there'll be places like, whether it's, I don't know, like the post office or the supermarket, and they've always driven. And, oh, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going a bit blurry. Sorry guys, I didn't know what happened there. And all of a sudden they just change the habit that they've been in of a lifetime, and they build a new system, and they always walk to this place now, or they always park at the back of the, like I will always park at the back of a car park. And I know that that seems so insignificant, but all of these little things throughout the day, I will always take the staircase. I don't care if, okay, maybe if it's more than 5 flights, I might get the lift. But generally speaking, I'm taking the stairs. If it's a basic elevator and then there's escalator and then there's stairs, I am taking the stairs. If it's a car park of any size, I am always parking at the back. If there's an option to do, if there's 10 minutes to kill and I am stood, I will walk. Like, there's just certain things that it's like a default. And I would give yourself a number to measure your progress on this. So a set amount of steps is easy. Normally inside the Thriving Women community, if you're a one-to-one client, we'll take into account your very specific lifestyle and the demands of your day. But generally speaking, if you're the wider community and you are here on this podcast, I would say like 8,500 steps minimum a day, and anything upwards from that. So we want to be striving for 10, 11 each day. That is what we want to be striving for. We want to be striving for this average of 70 a week, ladies. But the non-negotiable minimum is 8.5. And if you hit an 8.5, you've got 1.5 to make up somewhere else in the week, is how we would look at it, because we're trying to strive for that 70 overall. So having that as a non-negotiable, system number 1. Number 2, non-negotiables with your food, with the food shop, with the food that you allow in the house, with the food that you will allow into your body. Like, we've got to be very clear on this. I think it's glamorized online a little that we can have a diet without restrictions. And we can definitely achieve a calorie intake with no restrictions. Like, we can make anything work, generally speaking, inside of a weekly calorie allowance, and that's okay. But for the majority of us women, and definitely for the women who are going to be listening to this podcast, we also want to think about keeping our body away from inflammation. We also want to be able to perform in the gym, able to recover. We don't want to be walking around with brain fog. We don't want to have these constant cravings. We don't want to be struggling with bloat. And so we've got to have standards for our food. We have to. And whether that is a truth that you're ready to hear, I don't know. Because again, as much as we want the outcome and you might want that end result, I said this, I think, at the beginning of the podcast, very few women are actually willing to put real boundaries in place and just hold them as a system. Like, hold them as a system, day in and day out, weekend, weekday, doesn't really matter. These are, and of course, we follow the 80-20. So 20% of the time, you're going to go out, you're going to have the ice cream, you're going to order whatever your heart desires off the menu. But for the other 80% of the time, we're going to hold some level of a boundary. And like, I've maybe mentioned this before, but again, like there's certain foods that we just don't have in the house. There's certain places that we won't go to eat. There's certain foods that if the kids or the hubby are having, I just won't have. Like, I would rather wait until the next meal or go to the next place and find something that I enjoy, because that's a standard, that's a system, and actually it's keeping me in this place where I feel really good. So if I can just do more of that, and if you can just do more of that, then guess what? You get to have that outcome. You get to sustain that outcome. I think one of the things with this is like figuring out the foods that work for you. And so following a bit of a whole food diet. If you've not listened to last week's podcast, please go back and give it a listen. I do touch on what a whole food diet actually kind of means. And at all times, ladies, it's 80-20. So we're having a whole food diet, but we're also having a slice of pizza. On holiday, we had cake, we had ice cream, we had pizza one night back at the hotel. But for the majority of the time, I go to the breakfast buffet and I am eating the foods that line up with keeping me feeling at my best. It doesn't matter that the buffet is swarmed with all of this amazing stuff. That's just not foods that I eat. And it doesn't really matter if it's there or if it's not. We've got to get very clear on, I understand what works for me. And this is not going to be for everybody. There will be women listening to this thinking, well, that sounds boring. It comes down to what you want more. It honestly comes down to what you want more. And it's not about achieving a set goal weight. It's how you feel in yourself. It's how you feel when you open the wardrobe and you've got the pick of anything and you feel good in whatever you put on, and you're not picking yourself apart by the pool because you've built this self-trust whereby you feel good. You know that you've got your own back. And so having these boundaries around food, I think starting with your whole food diet is a biggie. Simple things for me, like I'll always start the day with protein. That's a system that I just have. Actually, I'm in a grey area on this one. If I can't start the day with protein, I will start it just with some form of fresh food, whether it's like fruit and avocado or, listen, that ain't protein. 9 times out of 10, we want to start with protein. It helps to regulate blood sugar, which will then help to regulate cravings and energy, and helps us to avoid those PM crashes. But 9 times out of 10, we're starting with protein. Otherwise, we are starting with just whole food, fresh food. Like that's the default here. Is it's a fruit, it's vegetable, it's meat, it's a protein option, it's eggs, it's fish, maybe a little bit of dairy. I'll always have berries each day just for antioxidant intake, low in calorie, full of goodness. Obviously, we want to make sure we're getting our nutrients in. I don't really have foods in the house that I feel once they get opened, like it's going to be my weakness. So I've said this on here before, but and this is me talking about you protecting your energy. So obviously I've got foods in the house for the kids. Then that's not my cup of tea. I'm not going to be eating their stuff. That's not. But if it's something for me, for example, so mine is peanut M&Ms. I just don't have them in. Don't get them in if you know that you can't stop at just eating a couple. Have boundaries. Be very clear on it. And non-negotiables with meals that you go to as well. So if life gets busy or the day is busy or the day runs away with you, which it does with all of us, you just have default meals. So maybe you always have some protein in the fridge or freezer, whether it's like tins of tuna, eggs, frozen fish maybe that you can just like pop in the air fryer. But there'll be certain foods in the house pretty much at all times that, if all else fails, we can make an omelette, we can make a tuna wrap, we can make a fish and white rice with veggies. Again, very basic because it's got to be, because we're relying on these meals for, this is what I need to go to when I'm short on time or the day's gotten away with me. Same when we get back from holiday, actually. If we are completely out of food, we will just go to the local wherever and grab some eggs, grab some spinach, maybe get some peppers, tomatoes, and we'll just make omelettes. And then it's meal done. Tomorrow we're going to get the food shop. But it's a standard. It's not, world is our oyster, there's no food in. What shall we indulge in? Again, you've got to think about, I'm trying to drive the needle here to get to my goal. And I also want to be able to sustain it when I get there and feel, I keep emphasising this, ladies, it's a feeling. It's this feeling of feeling so good. And I've got many clients who have experienced this and live this lifestyle now. And it's so rewarding as a coach. But it's this feeling of feeling so good that you own it. You own the boundaries that you hold. And it really doesn't care less if anybody else thinks that that's restrictive or boring or over the top. Because at some point, we've got to limit options. At some point, if you really want to get consistent, you've got to limit options, the amount of options available when it comes to food, because consistency is only really achievable when you rinse and repeat the majority of the time. And again, it doesn't have to be very set specific meals that you rinse and repeat, but create a food shopping list that is pretty basic. Possibly still got my food shop guide in my Instagram bio. If I have not, and it's not on the link tree, please send me a message and I'll send it over to you. Put together a free document earlier this year, a free guide, I should say, on just creating the ideal food shop. Because if you can stick to that, and there's also meal suggestions as well. So these are the foods that you're going to buy, to base 80% of your meals. These are the meal suggestions. Stick to that. Everything else is just not part of the makeup. So we're walking around the aisles and we might feel like this and we might be tempted by that, and we see this certain thing and it's on offer and that's temptation, and it's nope. At some point there's going to continue to be more options put in front of us when it comes to food. Like the food industry is as we know, it's a multi-billion pound industry and it's very fast growing. So the more produce that they can put in front of us, the more junk, the more crap that they can put in front of us, the more that they will. And so we've just got to get very clear on, regardless of what the latest thing is, or like, that's just not inside of my boundary. Tracking consistency over the scale, I think, is a great one. Like, if you can follow this as a system, it will remove the overwhelm of like, oh, what's the scale today? Like, I just want you to think about, can I build up a threshold whereby I am tracking consistency and I am being as consistent as I possibly can? That's where your result is going to come from. Consistent as I possibly can. So the scale in the meantime is potentially going to fluctuate. Be okay with that. You're going to have mini ups and downs. As long as we're trending downwards over the grand scheme of things, like, we're good, we're on course. But what we don't want is, we don't want the scale to then impact decisions, because it does. It impacts mentality and behaviours, and it can throw us off course. And I personally don't have an emotional attachment to the scale, so I will use it as data and information, and I advocate that you all do the same. And I think working with a coach can really help you get around that. But if you're not working with a coach and you are using the scale as your metric, it feels justifiable. Like, we know if we want to drop body fat, we know the scale is going to move. But when we talk about enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, I want you to track consistency. How consistent can I be with drinking 3 litres of water a day? How consistent can I be with hitting my daily movements? How consistent can I be with dinner and dawn? How consistent can I be with my bedtime routine? How consistent can I be with my boundaries around social media? How consistent can I be with eating protein in every meal? Like, use that as the metric. Chase that. Don't chase the scale. Chase that. Chase the consistency. And I promise you, not only will the scale start to move, but the way that you look, the way that you feel, your energy levels, it will all improve as a byproduct. And then the last one is just a minimum standard for sleep. Again, a lot of us, myself in my 40s, and a lot of you ladies listening to this, we are of that 35 plus age bracket. And so sleep is no longer a luxury for us. Like, it's something that we've really got to factor in, consider, and we actually have to also consider things that might impact our sleep, whether that's too much caffeine, too much screen time, whatever it might be. But we've got to factor in a minimum standard for sleep if we want everything else to flow and to feel achievable, especially when it comes to the nutrition, reducing inflammation, being able to recover. Like, it all kind of goes hand in hand. It's this ecosystem that I talk about. So we're not chasing perfection. You are going to have nights, if you've got small children, where you wake in the night. You are going to have nights where you stay up a little bit later than you plan to, or maybe you don't get that restful night's sleep because it's approaching menstrual cycle. But as a standard, we need to have a minimum, a bare minimum standard that we adhere to. I'll give you an example. So I have a couple of clients that from time to time will have work outside of work that they have to get done. And that might mean that they're up working until 11 o'clock at night. But our non-negotiable standard inside of Thriving Women is we can't do that for too many consecutive nights. And that's just got to be a boundary. It has to be. So if you're going to be working late and we're going to commit to Monday, Tuesday, but then Wednesday we are going to commit to a minimum of, this is going to be the time that we switch off the screen. This is going to be the time when we get up the stairs. This is ideally going to be when you get into bed and turn the lights out. That's Wednesday. You can go back to them working a little bit later on the Thursday if needs be this week for work, because at some point we have to be selfish and we have to protect our well-being and prioritising your sleep. Getting consistent with all of this stuff really just comes back to protecting your well-being. Again, I think for a lot of the women that I speak to, and this has been such a lesson for me, ladies, in my 40s, is that pushing harder did always work. Like, if I felt a little bit overstretched or stressed or underslept, I would just get out the other side. Like, the body is so robust. Like, we would just be able to stumble through and get out the other side. I just can't do that anymore. And if you know that you also cannot do that anymore, then let's get smart. Let's make sure we've got some systems in place. So it's not a choice. You're not leaving yourself vulnerable to, okay, I'm just going to work this a little bit later. I feel stressed, but I'm going to ignore it. Like, we've got to have these systems in place whereby we're able to pull ourselves back, we're able to pull ourselves in. So we have one meal off plan, but then we're able to pull ourselves back because we've got these non-negotiables. Don't forget, with our meals and our standards, we have one night's broken sleep. We're able to pull ourselves back because we know that over the course of the week, this is the standard that we're trying to achieve or strive for. And so I'm hoping that this has helped. I believe it is very basic day-to-day habits, behaviours, but it started to feel very overwhelming for a lot of women because we do have so much information, so much choice, so many different recipes, so many different options when it comes to food, and we want to keep it basic. I cannot say this enough, and this is going to hold you up through the whole of summer, through all of your weekends, through your holidays. We're going to do the 80-20. We're going to have 20% of the time where we allow ourselves to let our hair down, but it can't be 30. It can't be 30% and you still expect the outcome. If you really want to get to that aesthetic, you really want to get to that goal, you really want to experience that feeling of, I've done it. And I don't know what the number is on the scale right now, but I just know I feel great. I feel strong, fit and capable when I go into the gym. I feel like I'm able to just put on whatever I want when I'm going out. I feel good in my energy. I'm not relying on caffeine to get through the day. I am recovering well from my workouts. I am not as short-tempered. I feel just more myself. That is going to take removing anything that's not this, anything that is not these simple systems. And it's becoming the exception to the norm, but we are thriving women. So let's be the exception to the norm. Let's embrace it. Let's thrive. Let's do our own thing. Let's stay in our own lane. Let's not worry too much about what everybody else appears to be doing and keeping up with. And let's just get very clear on what works for you. What foods work for you? What amount of sleep do you need to operate at your best? What habits, what boundaries do you need to put in place to ensure that you protect your own mental and physical energy? Ladies, I'm hoping that this has been helpful and supportive. And as always, if there's any more context that you know that you'd like from this episode of the podcast, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, I just need Inside Thriving Women because I need to know more about how to actually implement these systems, like what do these systems look like in my day-to-day life? What is the nitty-gritty of that diet? What does that look like in terms of overall calories for me? Like, I need some accountability to keep to the steps, the sleep, the exercise, whatever it is. There is an open invitation. The group coaching is open. Come and join us. It's not too late. It's not, I'll wait till after summer. Life is happening now and we deserve to thrive for every moment of it. And so I will look forward to catching you all on the next episode of Fit and Unfiltered podcast.